This is the School Success Podcast, a podcast for school leaders to learn from other school leaders what's working and what's not, and to get inspiration and encouragement, as well as strategies to grow school enrollment, connect with families, retain teachers, recruit teachers, and everything in between. You guys are heroes, and I cannot thank you enough for pouring into this next generation that's coming behind us. My goal is you will take at least one thing away from every episode that you can take back to your school to make it better than it is right now. Please enjoy the School Success Podcast. This podcast is brought to you by the Herzog Foundation.
Time for school.
Hey, School Success Makers. Welcome to another edition of the School Success Podcast. I'm your host, Mitchell Slater. I'm joined by a new friend out of the great state of Missouri, Daniel Maggart, who is a co-superintendent and secondary principal of St. Joseph Christian School in St. Joseph, Missouri. And I got connected with him about a month or two ago, technically through the Herzog Foundation, technically. And so I got to know him and his school and was like, all right, this is going to be a fun episode. Because, guys, we're diving into something we've never talked about before on the podcast, which I would feel like it's kind of crazy. We've got a couple hundred episodes, and there's something we were talking about today that we haven't talked about before. So this will be really fun. So strap up and dig in because it's going to be a lot of fun. But before we do that, I always pass it off to our guests to introduce themselves. So, Mr. Maggart, welcome to the podcast today, sir.
All right. Hey, thank you, Mitchell. Thanks for having me. And so my name is Danny Maggart. I'm, as was mentioned, co-superintendent, secondary principal at St. Joseph Christian School here in St. Joseph, Missouri in the great Midwest. And been here for 29 years. And 30 years in Christian education, 29 years at St. Joe Christian, and started out as a PE teacher, Bible teacher, gradually got into some administrative things. If you'd have told me 29 years ago you'd be an administrator in a Christian school, I'd have said you're nuts. But here I am, and God has really been faithful and led me on this incredible journey. And so I'm thankful to have been at this place for almost 3 decades now, in just about every role imaginable.
That's awesome. So it's either you're really good and they can't get rid of you, or you're just so bad and they feel bad that they have to just keep you around, just, finish you out. I don't know which one it is, but
I don't want to know which one it is. It doesn't matter.
Good. Well, I'm glad and thankful for your 3 decades of service to obviously education, but specifically Christian education. Danny, that's awesome. And obviously I know you're doing a great job. That's why we're having this podcast together. So before we dive into our fun topics for today, I always ask everybody the same question. I know you listen to the podcast, so you know what's coming. But if I was to visit you in St. Joseph, Missouri, you would say, Mitchell, you need to eat this and do this to experience St. Joseph, Missouri.
Okay. So I think we would probably head south on I-29 about 40 minutes. We're just north of Kansas City, and I'd have to take you to a couple of barbecue places down there. Joe's Barbecue or Q39. If we were in St. Joseph, I would probably take you to an authentic Italian pizza place called Il Lazzarone. They brought a oven in from, I think Sicily. I don't remember, somewhere over there in Italy. But anyway, it's amazing. Or actually a Cajun restaurant called Boudreaux's, which is, those would be the 2 places I would take you here in St. Joe. But we would have to go down to Kansas City and eat some barbecue. There's no doubt about it.
That's what I've heard. I've heard Kansas City makes good barbecue.
It is the best. It is the best. And so, and then, as far as things to do here that I would take you to do, we have a great parkway system. Even just to drive through the parkway, it's just a beautiful drive through St. Joe. If you're into riding bikes, it's a great place to do that. I'm not saying I do that. I'm just saying I've heard it's a great thing to do. And then we've got the Pony Express started in St. Joe. That's kind of interesting. Jesse James's life ended in St. Joe. His life was taken. Those 2 places are literally less than a mile apart, downtown St. Joe. But you would have to come in the middle of July through the first week of August, because that's when the Kansas City Chiefs are training 1 mile from our campus here. And they're all over town for about 3 weeks. And so we've had people at Chick-fil-A that, for some of our students at Chick-fil-A that, Patrick Mahomes or Travis Kelce, or, whoever will come through the drive-through. And a few years ago, we had their defense. Most of their defense was out here working out on our field at our school. and it's just pretty amazing. So they actually gathered up and prayed on our field before they left, and they hadn't lost a Super Bowl until last year when they'd done that. So I thought that was kind of a cool fact about our school. So, but definitely, I know a lot of people around the country do not like the Chiefs because they win all the time. But I've been a Chiefs fan since I was born, and so I've gone through the 2 and 14 years and all that. So I'm not a bandwagon fan. I'm a diehard fan.
It's good. I love how and I get it. And I see I'm a Chicago Bears fan, and we've been bad for a very, very long time. Pretty much my entire life's existence. I wasn't even alive for our Super Bowl in '86. So I understand. So I'm going to say this right now. I'm a Bears fan. If we end up, doing something good, which as we record this, we're looking okay. I'm pretty happy
Yeah.
so far. We're 3-2 at the moment of recording this, and I know Chiefs are looking a little different this year, but Mahomes is staying strong. I have him in fantasy this year, so I'm actually
Yeah.
happy he's doing a good job. We'll see if they can turn it around, but they're not as bad as the Ravens. Whatever happens to the Ravens this year, I don't know what's going on. But
Well, that's a bizarre one, but yeah, the Chiefs are 3-3, and I think they're going to get going here.
it's like the Chiefs are kind of like the Patriots back in the day, where you're like you can never count them out. It's one of the teams that
Yep.
if Mahomes is in, like you're never out of the game. I mean, it's just kind of like one of those. They become one of those teams. I love Andy Reid. They got some good people on their team, so you're in a good football area.
Yes, for sure.
So diving in, I know you said you've been in the school for 3 decades. When we were talking, you were sharing some really specific, really unique things that you guys do at St. Joseph that I was like, man, one, I've never heard of a school doing this. Not saying that they don't do it, but I had never
Mhm.
heard of it, and all the people I've talked to. And so I would love just to have some fun dialogue back and forth of some of these things that you're doing at your school. And I know one of them, you're talking about some teachers that are highly, highly trained, and I'll just let you share it actually, but they're very highly trained. What are they trained specifically in, Danny?
Yes, so we have three of our teachers. They are trained at a SWAT level security training. I think, and they open carry. They have actual security shirts on where it's clear that these people are security. It's clear that they are carrying a weapon with them, and they are just regular teachers with inside our school building. We had several years ago, we had a couple of people on campus that were not teachers, but were carrying. It was kind of I wouldn't say a secret. The board knew about it, but we changed things a few years ago. I think it was about 5 years ago, really coming out of COVID. And we were already in the process of putting this team together or looking for, okay, how can we up our security, not only around our school? We've certainly got the film on our windows. We secured our entrance area, and all of the things that many schools have done. But we were already in the process of talking to people about training at this level, and the situation in Nashville happened where that shooting took place. We saw these same kids had the same uniforms that our kids do, and that was kind of the thing that was like, okay, we've been planning on this. Now we're going from second gear to fifth gear right now. And so there were several things that had to come into place. One of those things is a school board that was all in on this, that we are going to make sure that St. Joseph Christian School is not a soft target. And we're going to make sure that people know about that. Another piece of that was having people on campus that that are comfortable and that are willing to go through this kind of high level, intense training, not only initially, but throughout the school year. And then the third thing is having a person that and an organization that is able to train them locally, that has the expertise and that can be there where we can call them up, or we've got a good relationship with them. They've got a good relationship with all the law enforcement in the area and can get us connected. And so we definitely found out going into this that there's not a lot of schools we can call around and go, hey, how's this worked out for you? We're kind of I wouldn't say a guinea pig, but there's just not a lot of schools to call, that have done this. And so it was kind of interesting. Our people went into the training. We actually went up as an administrative team. We went up and witnessed them doing about 30 minutes of this high level SWAT training. And when I say high level, it is very intense. It is not just your typical conceal and carry. It is very detailed. They're trained in hostage rescue and you name it. They are trained in it. Where if a incident happened here at the school, they are tactically trained in our building on how to approach and how to maneuver around the building, and work with other law enforcement as well. So, then came time to announce to our families, and it's time. Hey, we're doing this. This is why we're doing it. And so, that announcement came out, again, 3 or 4 years ago, and it was nothing but, very much encouraging, a very encouraging response from all of our stakeholders, and they were very grateful. I think the high level, and when they realized that, look, this is a very high level. This is like having 3 officers in your building, type of a level. It was, I think if it would have been like, hey, we got 3 people that, they're carrying, and so, I hope it all works out. That would have been a disaster and very unwise anyway. So actually, since I've talked with you, is when we have actually done the open carry. This was people knew who these people were, but all of the weapons were concealed. Now they are out in the open. And so when that announcement went out, we tried to explain the reasons for that and why. And again, families very, very supportive. A couple families reached out. We just want some more details, and so we were able to share that, and they were like, "Great, thank you for sharing that." So yeah, if you come to our school on a Friday for chapel, you'll see our person speaking in chapel with a gun right there on their hip. Our campus chaplain. If you go to our band class, you'll see our band instructor and junior high Bible instructor conducting music, and he's got a security shirt on and a gun clearly visible. If you go to our high school history class, you'll see a young man up there teaching with a gun on his hip. And so it's not something that we are happy that we do necessarily, or thrilled that we have to do that, or feel like we have to do it. But one thing is for sure, the message around this area is we are not a soft target at St. Joseph Christian School. That if people come here, they know that we've got people that are highly trained. And, our kids, they don't even think anything about it. Our security team knows that this is not a discussion that we have at all, other than when we're doing a drill. We want our people to know, that our students to know who these people are. And the reason is because if we would have an intruder here, these individuals are running to the problem. So we've got students in classrooms alone by themselves, and they need to know or be thinking about, okay, what do I do? What would I do if so-and-so left the room for an emergency? So we want our students to be prepared. Plus, we wouldn't want our students taking out our own people because, they heard somebody has a gun on campus, and now they see so-and-so with one, and now they're taking our own security out. So, but it's been quite the process, and it's ongoing for sure. But our families, our kids, it's been surprising. Well, I don't know if it's surprising, but it's been very, I guess, popular would be the right word for it.
Love it. Well, I have lots of questions for you, Danny. So to start with the three that are SWAT trained, they were not trained before. It's not like they were in the SWAT and then became educators. They were educators that found a specific training for this, and you guys paid for them to go take this training for this, right?
100%. Yep. The school pays for everything, and it's not cheap per se, but it's been again, the type of level of training that they're getting makes us all feel really good about it.
Yep. And I love that, because obviously one of the most dangerous people with a gun is somebody who doesn't know how to use it, and they don't know what the heck they're doing. That's definitely not a good thing. So those that are listening, because I think maybe some might have the idea of, that's a great, how cool is that? They have these ex-SWAT people that became educators. That's so cool. That's like actually not what happened at all. You took an educator who's good at what they do. They're trained at what they do, hey, are you willing to do this? And they went to this training. Is this something that you guys literally just Googled SWAT training Missouri and found a place that would do this? So I'm trying to think of other people who want to do this possibly as well. What should they be looking at to do something like what you guys are doing at St. Joseph?
Yeah, we did not necessarily. Now we did kind of start looking around. There were a lot of trainings, like with some companies down in Texas, and but not necessarily close to here. And so we found out about this individual and this private company that he has. It's very unique. He's currently a sheriff at a county that borders our county here, and so it was just kind of the perfect storm, I guess you would say, of a person that's 25 minutes from here, has his own private security company that does this high level stuff. He trains a lot of church staffs, but I don't think he does a lot of training to the level that um, our people are here.
Okay. And this, for the reason I know you mentioned they were concealed carry for a while, and you guys chose as a school to be open carry. What was that? What was the main decision factor when it came to being open carry versus concealed carry?
Yeah, that's a great question. We got feedback from our security team, and for one, they were talking about how uncomfortable that I'll just say it, how uncomfortable the gun was being concealed, and it was just kind of the other part of that. And I would say this is the bigger part: is those type of holsters are not as safe, actually, that they had, that was the conceal, as safe as the security holsters that they have now that are law enforcement grade. And so, for someone can see the gun, but they're going to have to do, they're going to have to, it's going to be a lot more difficult for them to be able to get access to that gun, even though they can see it, than it was when the gun was concealed. And so we felt like it was safer. People know who these people are anyway, and that it would also just enhance our security if there was something to happen as well. So they're able to have a little bit of a higher caliber weapon as well this way. So, there was a few things there. Our school board was all in, and we shared, hey, this is what the security team's saying. And the security, or our school board was all in on it immediately, honestly. I think we talked about that at the beginning, 4 or 5 years ago. And at that time, it was kind of like, well, we were not comfortable with it. Just because, this is, what's it going to look like? Some teachers walking around with a gun on their hip. And so, but now that time has gone on, it just felt like the timing was right. And, Mitchell, I honestly haven't, I've thought about this myself, but, I haven't had anyone mention to me, don't you guys trust the Lord to protect you? Why go to this, I guess, extreme type of a deal? And, my answer to that would be, well, do you lock your doors at night? Is it, or heaven forbid, you put the deadbolt on? And so, we definitely feel like the Lord has protected us, will protect us. We feel like this is money that is never going to be used, for sure. But we've also felt led to do it. We felt led to just do all that we can to protect our kids. And so, yeah, that's kind of where we're at.
Hey, school success makers, Mitchell here. I just want to take a really quick break from the show to give a big, huge shout out to the Herzog Foundation. I absolutely love the Herzog Foundation. I've been friends and partners with them for a couple of years now, but we're bringing it to a whole new level. And I'm excited to share that our very own School Success podcast is now featured on the Herzog Foundation Podcast Network. The Herzog Foundation is a powerhouse of resources designed to support schools like yours, from free training events through the Herzog Foundation Institute to their incredible online news publication, The Lion, and of course, our new podcast, Home. They have everything you need to stay informed and inspired. And if you're dreaming of starting your own Christian school or co-op, don't miss their online course, Schoolbox. It's a fantastic resource to help you get started on the right foot. At School Success, we're proud to partner with the Herzog Foundation to bring you these valuable tools and insights. So visit herzogfoundation.com to explore all they have to offer. Trust me, you won't want to miss out on these amazing opportunities for growth and success. And I love all the people over there, and I know you guys will too. So please go check them out, and you won't be disappointed. Now, back to the show. Yeah, and that's one of those arguments. I understand people's mindset and outlook when they have that. So like, well, you're a person of faith, and you should have faith that you're going to be protected. It's like, I agree, I do have faith, but there's so many. I feel like that argument's hard to hold up. Obviously, like you just said, do you locking your doors at night? Are you wearing your seatbelt? Knowing like, oh, God's going to protect me, I'm going to be okay, or I'm not going to go to the hospital, I'm not going to take medicine. Like, and I know there are religious sectors that are that way as
Right.
well, but there's just so many things like, God also gave us these resources and gave us the ability to have these things that are to protect us, to keep us safe. And so I think it's well within y'all's rights, obviously, to do what you're doing. Because I hate, and I know you said this already, I hate that you even have to think about that we even have to be in a world where we have to have a gun on campus and to be there to protect. Like, that should not be the case. Like, we shouldn't have to do that, but it is the world we live in, and your job obviously is to protect those students and protect all those kids there. And I think what you guys are doing is a great way to obviously prevent something from happening. And Lord, we hope that none of that happens again to any other school, or specifically to, obviously, to you guys as
Yeah.
well. But it does, you guys you're doing everything in your power to prepare for that if God forbid it was to happen.
Yeah, and we know that you can't prevent anything. No school can prevent anything. That you can't prepare for everything. So we're certainly not arrogant or thinking, hey, we won't have any issues any ever again, or there, it's but it is definitely an interesting world we live in. That we can all agree on that.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah. So, pivoting just a little bit, I know we talked about that one, so thank you for sharing and being open about sharing what you guys were doing there. I guess real quick, actually, one more thing on that. For those that are listening who are interested in maybe doing something like that, whether it's having a security person on staff come on board, or a teacher that's going to get training, like any just piece of advice on that specific section that you would say in your process of the 4 or 5 years you guys been doing this, that you would say, hey, just know this. Is there anything that kind of comes to mind you'd want to share with a school looking at potentially doing the same thing?
Yeah, I think the having a process of making sure that it's the right person for your school. You definitely don't want an employee that's kind of a roller coaster ride, handling a gun on your campus. Somebody that is serious enough that they are, willing to put their life on the line. Which we're fortunate to have, 3 people that have signed up for that. I think, going to the school board first of all and saying, hey, would you all ever consider this? This is a school that's doing it. I'd be happy to talk to anybody about our experience any further. But I think that the biggest key is if the school board's for it, if there's someone that, or a person or persons that are interested, I think getting that training that is as high level as possible is such a key. That's something that has given us just peace of mind, knowing what um, our people are going through in order to be able to carry their weapon here on campus.
Perfect. Thank you for sharing on that one. Pivoting into the next one for you guys that we want to talk about today. You had talked about you guys have a very, very strict now cell phone policy, and you're doing some things to be to make it strict, I guess. So tell me a little bit about what you guys are doing for cell phones at campus.
Yeah, so several years ago, I mean, we went to these phones, when kids walked in classrooms, they had to put their phones in a pocket and things like that. And it worked out okay, but it was one of those things where, you heard, well, kids are still, some of them aren't turning them in, or there's, all these things. And so, we decided to go to putting a locker in every classroom at the start of the school day at 8 o'clock at their first hour class. They put their phones in this locker. The teacher keeps track of that, and the phone is there till the end of the school day at 3:10. Students do not have any access to their phones whatsoever. They do have access to phones on campus. There's one at the elementary side. There's one at the secondary side. And so secondary students can call anytime they want. They can also email families through their Chromebooks that they have as well, if they have them on them. So, it's been, I will just say, I wish we'd have done it a long time ago. And honestly, the teachers and administrators, we love it. Surprisingly, the parents love it. I think knowing that their students can still call and they have access to them. I really thought we'd get a lot of pushback on that, and we really didn't. And then the biggest surprise is the students actually. Now, I'm not going to say every student, that would be a pretty bold statement to make and not honest, obviously. But I would venture to say that the majority of the students, I really think, like the policy because, students are talking to each other in the hallways, students are talking to each other at lunch. So from 8 o'clock to 3:10, we have complete control over that. And so if we go on a field trip or if the students are off campus for any reason, they have their cell phones on them. It's just while the students are here on campus. And so, but it has been a game changer. And again, I wish we would have done it a long time ago.
So playing devil's advocate real quick on this, would you say, okay, if there was an emergency that happened, that parents are like, oh my goodness, my kid can't call me. I know you talk about the Chromebook if they have it on there and stuff, but like there's something like boom, something happens and they don't have their phone to be able to call authorities or call parents. Like what was there had to be at least somebody that had that concern. And how did you guys navigate that? Because I'm assuming other people listening are like having the same question of like, what happens if there's an emergency? What do you guys do?
Yeah, well, actually, and that's one reason why we want them to have their cell phones when we're off campus because, if a bus breaks down or there is something where we're away from this place and students can get a hold of their parents. But while on campus here, it's actually one could make an argument that it's not as safe for all the kids to have their phones because of lines getting, so many calls going out, so much misinformation. We have our things in place to protect the kids here. And, we may not want a parent flying out here and running into our building, or trying to, or what have you, without even knowing what's going on, without even having the facts. And so, we have our processes in place to get a hold of local law enforcement. We certainly have our own enforcement here on campus. And so I think for families, it was a trust knowing that, okay, here are the levels that they've gone to protect our kids. And it does make sense that if everybody's trying to call or everybody's texting or how it could just turn into chaos where, we have our things in place to protect our students, to communicate to families what's going on. And that would make it much more orderly than, just the chaos of a kid, let's say there was a shooting going on here at the school. And I hate to even say that out loud, but let's say that was going on and a student was calling their parent from the classroom, well, what's that parent going to do? I mean, what are they going to do? Run out here and start firing their weapon or, dive through the window and grab their kid? So again, I think those safety things we put in place helped with the cell phone policy. I think there's probably a little bit of a correlation there.
Okay, very good. With the obviously putting this policy in place, I'm assuming you've had some stories come out, like good stories, bad stories, I guess, from this, like where you had some potential. I know you said the kids are mostly bought in. Has there been some pushback or kids go and bring in their second phone or not putting their phone in? And then what do you do for disciplinary action? What does that look like if a student either has a second phone or doesn't put it away? What does that look like for the school?
So teenagers are the most creative people on planet Earth. I think we all can agree on that. And so, yeah, we've heard the rumors of, hey, somebody puts their phone in the lock and then they keep their phone on them, all of these things. And we've been very upfront with the students, kind of like, hey, we know this goes on, but if we catch you on this, this is what the result is. So, basically, a first offense is we keep the phone. The parent needs to come and get the phone. So the kid don't get their phone, and you can only imagine if the phone gets turned in at 3 o'clock on Friday, and they're going to have their phone over the weekend. I mean, you talk about, you've never seen teenagers more distraught than that. But yeah, so that's the first offense. Normally that does it. That is usually it. After that, it could go to, we're taking your phone, and then you're going to have a detention or maybe even in-school suspension. And then from there, it could go as far as you're not allowed to have your phone on this campus at all. So that's where it would lead to, because we can't trust them. And so, but yeah, I've had a few phones that have been confiscated over the time, and every now and then it'll buzz in my office during the day or what have you. And I'm like, well, gee, I wonder who's trying to get a hold of their student, or I wonder what peer is trying to get a hold of them. Of course, I don't answer or look at it, but generally we've found that students do not like their cell phone in the co-superintendent principal's office. We have learned that.
I can imagine, especially if you're like, if you were like, principal's office, Danny's speaking, not going to help you. You know, has there
Don't
been
tempt
any
me with
student
that.
that I would definitely, man, I would be the one that would be. I mean, I know you have to. If I knew the kid, I'd be I guess, a different story. I know you have to be really careful with rules and laws and all that stuff. Has there been
Right.
a kid that has done that, like where they've literally broken it multiple times to where it's in school suspension or something? Has it gotten that way, or has it been no, not yet?
It has not. It has not um, achieved that level, and we hope it never does. But if it does, I know that we've had nothing but family and parent support on this. So, by the way, anyone listening to this, if you would ever like me to talk to your school board about the impact it's had on St. Joseph Christian School, I'd be happy to do it.
Well, love that. What's real quick, just so we don't forget it? If they needed to get in touch with you, wanted to, what's the best way? Is it email, LinkedIn? What would be the best way to connect?
Yeah, I would say probably email Maggart and then D as in Danny at stjosephchristian.com. And the saint is just ST. Everything else is spelled out.
Perfect. Well, moving right along to our next one. I'm gonna make sure we're don't get too hung up and we run out of time today. But you guys talked. You and I talked about this a month ago when we talked about you guys at St. Joseph. You like run towards issues in society, and like there's some things that you don't run away from. And I know that some schools will run away from certain topics. Churches will run away from topics. Obviously, just people in general will run away. Like, hey, I don't even want to talk about that stuff. But you guys kind of like run towards things. And you said something that I'll quote because I know you're going to dive into this. Is you say some things are political, but everything is biblical. And I would love for you to just kind of open that up a little bit. Like, what does that mean for you guys at the school when you say that some things are political, but everything is biblical? What does that mean for you guys?
Oh, 100%. Our society makes everything into a political argument. Either you're on the, Democrat side, the Republican side, every topic, and all that. And so it's just, to me, it's such a, well, for me, it's just demonic that everything has to be labeled political. I think there are a few things political, but again, everything's biblical. And so, we like to think of ourselves as running to issues. We're not out to cause controversy or just do things very unwise. But I think in our world today that if we are not being aggressive in approaching every topic that's out there, we're doing a disservice. I also think there's fewer and fewer churches that are having the courage to speak on every topic, and not, they're afraid of offending, maybe their churchgoers, or, at a school like this, we could be afraid of, well, we don't want to offend, so and so because of this. And, we like to think of ourselves more afraid of what God thinks than what man thinks. And so I'll give you an example, Mitchell, that really got my attention. And this was really recently. We had a young lady here that came to speak, and she had tried to abort a child, and that child survived, and thank the Lord. And she's got a really strong ministry. Well, she's getting ready to go in and talk to our 7th through 12th graders about this. And so she asked me out in our hallway outside our gym. She goes, "Is it okay if I say the word abortion here? Because I know some schools and some churches I've, talked in, they don't want me to say that word." Well, I almost passed out. Like, what? And I'm like, not only do you say it, I don't want you to leave any part of your story out. Kids need to hear this. We're not worried about people's feelings or this or that. This is a biblical issue. And so, she did a fantastic job. But, when she asked me about that, I thought, what schools and what churches are scared of this? Well, to me, that is so political for people to be afraid of that word. We've got innocent babies being killed, and people are afraid of what people will think of that. I just, I may be the only one that feels this way. I know I'm not, but I'm like, we are not going to be a school that is going to back down from God's word and God's truth. And that goes with everything, with gender identity, with marriage, with all of these topics that our kids are hearing about. We need to be ahead of that, partnering with the family, partnering with the church. We're certainly not the church, but partnering with them and bringing in these speakers that are going to speak boldly and they're going to speak the truth. And, with that, we give our families, when we bring in speakers about maybe it's gender identity, maybe it's on abortion, maybe it's whatever it might be, families know that, hey, you can opt out of this if you want. We're going to partner with families on this, but we're not going to back down from it. We had a situation last year in Missouri where there was I'm trying to remember the name of what it was called, but it was anyway, we were trying to make families vote against this abortion bill here in Missouri. And so we put a couple of signs out on our property here, which we have a right to do. Just said vote no for this, or vote yes, whichever one it was. I don't remember which one it was, but the opposite of abortion. I know that's what it was. Well, most of our people were for it. A couple of families were like, hey, I'm not sure we should start getting into politics. And I'm just like, this is not political. This is a biblical issue, and we're out to do our part to love people and to save lives and to save the lives of little innocent children. And that has nothing to do with, certainly it's in politics, but that is a biblical issue. It is. And so I just think the enemy has a heyday with trying to make everything political when, in my opinion, 95% of it's biblical.
Hey, I just want to take a really quick break from the podcast to highlight one of our amazing partners and sponsors, ClassReach. If you're a new school administrator or founder and are struggling to keep up with all the hassles of planting a new school, like collecting tuition, communicating with parents, or handling student data, then you need ClassReach. ClassReach is the all-in-one software that helps with everything from admissions and tuition to classroom management and parent communications. Sign up for a free consultation with one of their school specialists and see how ClassReach can help your school grow today. You guys can check them out online, classreach.com. They are a kingdom-minded company, and I love their leadership team there. I've become friends with a lot of them. They truly are a great company. I support them, and I love them, and you guys will love them too. Check them out at classreach.com. Now, back to the show. Man, that's good. So we had the same thing in Florida 2 years ago, whenever it was, the same thing, vote no on yes or no, whatever it was on one for the same thing for ours. And I took my, I guess it was this past year, because it was when Trump Harris were running. So we went for that, and it was one of the line items on there. So I took my 5-year-old with me because I wanted to just experience like, hey, this is what voting is. This is what we get the privilege to do as U.S. citizens. And so I took him with me, and that was really cool. Like he didn't like it. I mean, he was bored. He was like, what is this? And I was like, this is our process. And I showed him the thing. I got to take him with me to the booth, and I was like circling it in. And so then we're leaving, and he sees a sign, and he goes, and he's learning to read, he goes, no one. And I was like, huh. And he goes, what's that sign mean? And I was like, 5 years old. How do I explain this in a way that's appropriate for his age, And I said, well, Milo, I said, some people, the people who are, whatever it was, I can't remember which one it was either. I said, people who are against this, like they either love babies or they don't love babies, is the best way I could describe it to him. And he's like, there's people out there that don't love babies. And I was like, yes. Like, I was like, man, again, trying to keep it so PG for a 5-year-old. He goes, well, I said, what do you think about that? And he's like, well, that doesn't sound good. That doesn't sound right. And I was like, there you go. I agree. So it was like a really cool teaching opportunity for him the same way. So I'm in agreement, obviously, with you on what you're talking about. So kind of not shying away from it. I do love that you give the parents the option. I think it's, I don't think it's right to be like, shoving things down, obviously, people's throat. I don't think that's our place at all to do that either, giving them the option. But it sounds like you guys have some pretty good buy-in, obviously, from your families for what I'm assuming they're all going. There might be occasional, it sounds like, families that maybe keep students back for something, especially if it's maybe age, probably more so age dependent, I guess I would say, on some of that stuff. But I guess in turn for all this, pretty good buy-in is what you're saying from your families when you've not avoided these things, your family support you guys in that. Is that what you're saying?
100%. I mean, again, people have the option, and sometimes a younger student, and I get it. If families haven't had a lot of conversations at home about this, they don't want to hear it at St. Joe Christian for the first time. But yeah, it has been very supportive, for sure.
So for schools, again, listening, kind of making it personal for them, listening and going, oh man, we're a part of a church that does not do that. And then they won't allow us to do that. I guess to speak to that one here in a second. So that'd be that piece of like a school that feels like they can't because of what the leadership says. And then you got the ones maybe that they really, really the opposite, I guess. They really want to, and the people are somebody's wanting them to, and they don't want to. I guess. What would you say for somebody navigating this? Of like, oh man, should we not? What is that? What would you say for guidance for a school that's looking at doing this?
Yeah, I think my question would be, and again, we're not tied to a church here. Maybe I shouldn't say we're not tied to a church because that's not a bad thing. We're not connected to a church, but I think it would be asking the leadership of that church in a respectful way. Why? What? Why would we not go here? Why would we not address this? And you know, I would love to be in that conversation because I'd love to hear what the answer would be.
Yeah.
Because I think we all have to ask ourselves, are we more afraid of what God thinks or are we more afraid of what man thinks? Again, with that comes wisdom. We have to be wise with how we go about things. But yeah, I think my advice would just simply to be asked why, because that would be the $1,000,000 question.
Yeah, that's a good question to ask. And I think those listening. I know we have we have a lot of Christian schools that listen. We might have a public school listening, and they're like, oh, obviously we could never, type of thing. And so I would say to those, speaking to the Christians, this is something that if I could articulate this well, it's like this is more very much where I'm talking for this Christian to Christian, because we're not going to be able to reason with our, because we're coming from it from obviously a biblical point of view of what we're saying, and people don't all have that point of view. So if we're talking specific, I think specifically, and Danny, correct me if you think I'm wrong here, but like Christian to Christian when it comes to this, like, hey, this is what we sound, where we're standing on this. Because if I'm trying to reason with somebody who's not using the Bible as their worldview, that's just going to be a clash waiting to happen. It's going to be nobody's going to agree on it. Which you agree with that then?
Oh, 100%. You've got to have a relationship with people, and just thumping them over the head probably isn't going to be the right way to go most of the time. And the thing too with our families, and I'm sure this is with the schools listening, we meet with our families, we go over these statements. I share with these families, hey, we're going to be bringing people in. We're not going to back away from this stuff. So, it's not a surprise to families in our school. But yeah, 100%. This would be for those people that are already, for the most part, bought into what you're already doing.
Good. Well, I know some people say, well, Danny, that's indoctrination. Well, and I know you have a really good response for, it's indoctrination. What would you say about that? If somebody's like, well, you guys are just indoctrinating your kids at your school.
Yeah, well, so when we started, we'll open up a new building here in a few weeks that we're excited about. And when this building project started, somebody put out there, well, that's that school out there that indoctrinates students. Well, my wife kept me from doing it, and I'm kind of glad she did now. But I was wanting to say, hey, could I use your quote on a billboard, please? Because that's exactly what we do. We indoctrinate with the biblical worldview. But actually, Mitchell, since then, I've thought a little bit more about that. And when indoctrination happens, people are only getting one side of the story, and they're basically kind of getting brainwashed into one side of the story. And I thought more about that. And at Christian education, we're giving our students the whole picture. We're talking about creation. We're talking about evolution. We're talking about all what different religions say and why Christianity is the truth. And here's why it is. So actually, I think we'll have to ask ourselves, the real indoctrination, does that come from the Christian school that's giving all of the arguments? Or is that coming from the school that just gives one argument? I'll just say this. When I was growing up in school, I heard one thing about, and it wasn't a Christian school, evolution was all that was taught in my science class. I would say I was being indoctrinated with evolution.
Yeah.
But our students at St. Joe Christian are getting evolution, they're getting everything under the sun, and they're also getting creationism. And students, here's the evidence. What do you think is the truth?
I like it.
And
it's like, no matter what, we're getting indoctrinated, as you were saying, It's like, is it good or bad?
We're indoctrinating with all of the worldviews here. If if that can even be possible. So, but if somebody wants to say that we are strongly giving evidence for a biblical worldview, 100%.
I like it. I'm good. I'm good with that one. That's good. Well, I got a couple more questions for you before we wrap up. Make sure we're good on time here. I know we're very proud to be sponsored by the Herzog Foundation with what we do here at School Success, and I know you specifically knew Stan Herzog personally, or knew like his family, I think, or the kids go there or something. Or there was a connection. I'd love you to share just a little bit about your connection with Herzog.
Yeah, so you've been here for 29 years. You get to know a lot of people, and I had Stan Herzog's kids in elementary PE class, and I was one of their. I got him to be the secondary principal, and now his grandkids are in the school. And Stan was just any other parent. You would never know, that he ran this worldwide construction company. I had no idea he had the money that he had. But the great thing about Stan was his humility, and he never, ever wanted people to know if he gave or helped with something. He just wanted to be behind the scenes. And so, so the Herzog Foundation now, I think about, and this all took place, he got the vision of Christian education in this old rundown, old elementary school where our school started, the worst part of St. Joe. And that's where this man got the heart for Christian education. And so, Mitchell, if you were ever in St. Joe, I would love to take you, again, to one of these places to eat first. But then I would want to take you to the corner of 14th and Olive, this old rundown building that's now an apartment building. And that right there is where this man got the vision for Christian education. And now, through this foundation, Christian education is being strengthened and started all over the world. It's an amazing story from a very humble man.
That is really cool. And that is what I heard. It just like a guy who had his kids in school, in Christian school, loved what it was doing for them and like how they came out. And he was like, I want to help more people have this become a possibility for them. I did not know about the building thing. You would think, Herzog Foundation would go buy that building. It's like, hey, we're going to buy this. It's foundational. But you're saying it's just an apartment complex now?
Yep, just an old apartment building. Let me tell you, people that sent their kids to that school, they were all in for Christian education. There's no doubt about it.
That's cool. That's exciting. Well, thank you for sharing a little bit about him. I wish I had gotten a chance to meet him, but obviously we're thankful for his life and legacy, for starting leaving money to start the Herzog Foundation and what they've been able to do across the country, where it's rare I meet a Christian school that does not know who the Herzog Foundation is. So that is a really cool, long-lasting legacy that he's done, which is really cool. So thank you for sharing that.
Yep.
I got one final question for you before we wrap up for today, and I've loved this episode, but let's end with one more piece of advice. I know you've been doing this 3 decades. You got a lot you could share here, but if you were to share just one final piece of advice for school leaders listening, what would that piece of advice be?
I think the advice would be a school leader needs to put themselves in a position to be held accountable. And I think not only from a school board, but from your faculty and staff and parents. And so I like to tell my faculty and staff that if you ever see me going away from the truth of God's word, then I expect you to do the Matthew 18 thing and sit me down and tell me about that, because I've seen too many Christian leaders just start to get off that straight and narrow path, and it can happen to anybody. And so, my advice would be put yourself in a position to be held accountable.
Love that. As I would hope all Christians would do that in general, but then especially school leaders and Christian school leaders, to have your families be able to speak up, or your staff feel comfortable enough to say something without the fear of being fired or being reprimanded for something like that.
Well, I've got some staff that can approach me with a gun. So
you're like, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'll listen, Well, Danny, I thank you for taking time again out of your day to be on the podcast today. And thank you as well for your 3 years of just pouring into students, these 3 decades of experience that you've been pouring into the next generation. I know there's a long-lasting impact from what the years you've put into this. So from me to you, thank you for that. I'm hoping that there's plenty more decades you got in you to keep doing what you're doing. And hopefully we get to cross paths and we go get some barbecue one day in Kansas City. All right.
That would be amazing. Thank you for your support. And I enjoyed being on here today.
Well, another huge shout out and a thank you to Danny for taking time and being on the podcast today. I love what he's doing up there in Missouri, and wishing them nothing but the best as they continue to grow and educate the next generation that's coming behind us. And there was a lot in that episode, guys. A lot of really good sections. I think we did it in like 3 or 4 different sections. So if you need to, as always, you can go back and listen to it 1.5 speed. I feel like I talk fast at times, so apologies. But you can 1.5 speed it. That's usually what I do when I listen to podcasts, so I can get it done a little quicker. But a lot of stuff in there. Encourage you guys to go back and listen to that one, because as always, I'm hoping you guys are able to take at least one thing away from each episode that you can take back to your school to make it better than it is right now. And there's multiple things in there that I'm hoping were an encouragement or inspiration, or at least just an idea generator for you and your school. And before you guys go today, I want to make sure you guys are aware of the 3 free resources we have available here at School Success. First one is, of course, the podcast. You're listening to it. So I'm hoping that you're loving the content we're putting out. And if you're not yet, I would love for you to subscribe to it, as well as leave a 5-star review. We're hoping you love the content. We do a lot of work and time to put this out for you guys. So be awesome if you could leave us a 5-star review. And then on our website, schoolsuccessmakers.com, the second free resource we have is our School Success Report. It goes out every single week with different articles the team has either written or found online to put into one email that you guys can look at each week to grow in your knowledge and make yourself a better leader, teacher, educator, whatever that might be. And so make sure you're getting that in your inbox each week, and it's free. Pretty sweet, and the team works really hard to put that together and does a really good job. And then last but not least is our free private Facebook community called School Success Makers. So go over there, hop on in, join it. I'm personally in there. I'd love to see you in there as well, get to know you. And so please join that. It's pretty awesome. Get connected with other school leaders all over the country and some internationally, and it's pretty cool. So I think that's it. So we'll be back here next week with another awesome guest as usual on the School Success Podcast. We'll see you then. The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of the Herzog Foundation.